So, you've picked up my stencils at Apples Rotting on Etsy. Maybe you're brand new to watercolor, and you don't really know what to do with them. No worries, I got you. Let me show you what you can do. This is the grid stencil, and then I also have the color wheel stencil, which everyone probably remembers from elementary school, where you can mix primaries, secondaries, and tertiary colors. Now, I'd like to show you this bar stencil. I call it a gradient stencil, so that you can mark out where you want to see the fullest saturation of your watercolor all the way to when you dilute it. And finally, we have these little 1-inch squares in a set of 6. I call this my thumbnail stencil. So let's put these all together, and I'll show you in a step-by-step process how this comes together. So this is the Academia watercolor block. It's 100% cotton, which is the most important thing, and it's 140 pounds, 300 GSM. Basically, it just holds the paper down because it's glued on 3 sides, and will be great for this demonstration. So we're going to use CMYK colors. We're going to start with Quinacridone Rose by Daniel Smith. We're then going to have another Daniel Smith, which is New Gamboge. I apologize for my terrible spelling. And Da Vinci will be giving us the Cobalt Turquoise. We're going to use these 3 and set up to see what they make. So I've just doled each one out onto a porcelain dish. I like porcelain dishes because they hold on to the pigments better than plastic, in my opinion. And we're gonna start with our color wheel. It's the very basic of basics. Now, because I am far too messy, I developed the stencils to avoid making any extra mess. So I will trace them out onto this block. I will show you where each color goes in relation to the stencil. It's hard to see from the overhead camera, so I will switch back and forth. But I'm gonna take yellow, since it's our basic color, and we're going to fill in one of the 3 triangles. I chose to use the top one. Now, do you see how it's pointing to that rounded trapezoid looking thing at the top? That's where it goes. So you have 2 points of yellow to help your brain understand that this is where it is in the mixing chart. For the second color, let's use Quinacridone Rose. Fill in another triangle, and fill in another block in the circle around it. Alright, time to use our last one, which is the Cobalt Turquoise, to fill in the last of the 3 in our triad. So the next match up is the New Gamboge Yellow and the Quinacridone Rose. We'll mix them together and get a nice orange. This goes on the side with the yellow and orange, the big long triangle, as you can see. It should also go where the triangle is pointing on the ring. It is at this point that I also realized I forgot to put the blue down. And then I realized you gotta put the red down too, and I went over both of these since they were just straight out of the tube colors. Let's take the New Gamboge and the Cobalt Turquoise and make a green. And we're gonna put it on the side where the yellow and blue are, in that long triangle. And then, because the triangle is pointing to a specific block on the ring, you're gonna fill in that ring with it. So far, so good. So let's take the Quinacridone Rose, and we're gonna take the Cobalt Turquoise and mix them together. And we're gonna get this super bright and beautiful purple. I'm always super impressed when a trio of colors can make such vibrant secondary colors. And once again, that goes between the Quinacridone Rose and Cobalt Turquoise triangle, and then the triangle is pointing to a specific spot on the ring, and we're going to fill that in. And so that gives us our primary colors and our secondary colors. Now it's time to make some tertiary colors. I'm starting again with the new gamboge and the Quinacridone Rose, and added a ton of the new gamboge in order to make a lighter orange. Then I went back and added the Quinacridone Rose so that I could get a true red. At least in my opinion, that's what it looks like. It's supposed to be an orange red, but in my opinion, it always comes out to be more of a true red. So then we took the Quinacridone Rose and the purple we made, and we got another, it looks a little more like a magenta in my opinion. And then we took the purple and the cobalt turquoise and got kind of a indigo color. Now I'm taking the green that we made and the cobalt turquoise to make more of a minty color, which I thought was really cool. And when you take the green again and you take some of the new gamboge, you get this sort of early spring green. It's just lovely in my opinion. And so there is your color wheel. However, if this sort of thing it doesn't make that much sense to you, maybe you could try something else. Let's take our grid stencil and trace around it. You only need to do a square block of the colors you're using. So we're using the new gamboge, Quinacridone Rose, and cobalt turquoise, so that's 3 colors. So you need to do a 3x3 square. Here's how you line up, mix, and set your colors. So here's how you start, at least I do. I start with one of the squares, and I mark on each side beside the squares one of the colors. It should go, for this demonstration, new gamboge, Quinacridone Rose, and cobalt turquoise. The reason I'm coloring in the center blocks is because if you go from one side, from the top to the bottom, and you match them up at the center, you'll get what color they're supposed to be. And with, say, 2 Quinacridone Roses, you get Quinacridone Rose. Then we're going to mix the colors again. Quinacridone Rose and new gamboge on this side, and above, make orange. New gamboge and cobalt turquoise together make green. Awesome. So then the only color we have left to fill in for this very simple, very basic one is Quinacridone Rose and cobalt turquoise. And as before, we know that it makes purple. This style of chart is particularly helpful with more colors. The more colors you add to it, the more squares you need for the variations. This really helps when you have no idea what your colors are going to make. However, I've also found that sometimes you also need to know what colors look like in their gradient. This is important because when painting with watercolors, it is highly encouraged to add more water instead of adding white, as the white paint tends to make the colors more opaque. So, when you want to test a color, all you have to do is mark out as many boxes as you would need. I'm going to start with this violet that we made. I'm going to add more water as I go and spread the pigment all the way down to allow the color to naturally taper off. Sometimes you don't need a whole bunch of layers. Sometimes you just need a lighter color. This allows you to figure out which is which for you. You can also test your pre-made colors. Here is our Quinacridone Rose. It's such a vibrant pigment that honestly I feel somewhat intimidated by it because I'm not sure how to use it. So the nice thing about the gradient chart for this particular color is that I'm able to see the variation as we add water to it. This helps it feel less overwhelming for me and makes me start envisioning how I can use it in a painting. And remember, you don't have to use all the bars available in the stencil. You can use only one, or you can use 3, or you can use all of them. It completely depends on what you need to test and what works best for you. Alright, so let's move on to our last stencil. So this is the thumbnail stencil. We're going to trace each of these 1 inch by 1 inch squares, and we're going to come up with a series of ideas that one could paint. I know many artists who work even smaller than 1 by 1, but I figure for most beginning artists or for artists who are just doing this on their off day or something for fun, 1 by 1 seems like a good size to me. So let's try something new. We're just going to put down blocks of color, shapes, of maybe how we want a scene to look. Remember that this is a planning stage, and so if the colors kind of slip or they start muddying each other, that's okay. You can always go back and try again later. Just try to get the idea of the colors you want to use and have fun. I hope this helps you use the stencils, and I hope it helps you get arting. Remember, you can find these stencils at Apples Rotting on Etsy, link in the description below, and I'll see you guys again soon. Thanks for watching.